I wanted to talk for a moment about something that occurred on Sunday's edition of Meet the Press. During the program, we aired a soundbite from a CBS News interview with the Attorney General, Bill Barr. In the bite that we aired and commented on, Mr. Barr was asked how he thinks the history of his decision to end the prosecution of the former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn will be written. Mr. Barr answered, quote, "History is written by the winner, so it largely depends on who's writing the history." In the full version of the interview and transcript, he went on to say, "But I think a fair history would say that it was a good decision because it upheld the rule of law." Now, we did not edit that out. That was not our edit. We didn't include it because we only saw the shorter of two clips that CBS did air. We should have looked at both and checked for a full transcript. A mistake that I wish we hadn't made, and one that I wish I hadn't made. The second part of the Attorney General's answer would have put it in the proper context. And had I seen that part of the interview, I would not have framed the conversation the way I did. And I obviously am very sorry for that mistake. We strive to do better going forward.
Chuck Todd with a full-on, I was wrong, but like kind of it was CBS's fault for putting out the shortened clip. But do we buy that one? And we have so many other things to talk about with our buddy David Harsanyi, who joins us now from National Review. We'll also talk about his latest excellent piece there. David, Chuck Todd saying, yeah, okay, we got this wrong, but, CBS put out a short clip, and we just went on that. I actually don't think this was an error. I think they just thought they'd get away with this because it's so egregious and so clear that there's just, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to think that he did that on purpose to make a point that was something that a lot of the media was talking about at the time. But, the problem here, I think, is that there's never any consequence for this sort of thing. Now, I'm not saying Chuck Todd should be fired, but I mean, if in the old days you were at a newspaper and you cut a quote in a way to make someone seem like they're saying something they're not, there would be some kind of consequence, I think, for it. Even today, I saw the New York Times had a quote from Jared Kushner where he says, that the elections will be delayed. But when you look at the whole quote later on, it actually says, I am not in charge of that, which is an important part of the statement, which was cut out. So then, Hillary's repeating it. It becomes like embedded in the conversation that we're having. Tons of people believe it. And we just move on every time. It happens every week, at least once a week, where you have someone mangling a quote. It's got to be on purpose because it always skews in the same exact direction. It's just it's impossible that they're always getting things wrong in the same direction all the time for year after year. It's just not plausible.
Now, we were just talking before you came on about Judge Sullivan, who looks like he's going to give the opportunity for amicus briefs to be filed about what's gone on here with the DOJ dropping charges against General Flynn. I was worried about this last week. I brought it up on the show so the audience would be prepared for the possibility of something weird happening here. I didn't know how bad it would get. There is the possibility that he still sentences Flynn as if the DOJ, it doesn't matter. I mean, he could. I've discussed this with a former DOJ friend of mine. That is absolutely something that could go on here. Somehow it looks like people are just planning to move past the targeting. I mean, on the left and in the media in particular, to move past the targeting of Flynn and the trove of new information that I think everyone would have to agree is really relevant about what happened here. I mean, you wrote a piece, Obamagate is not a conspiracy theory. And you say that there's more, this is up on National Review right now, there's more evidence for the targeting of Flynn and for Obamagate, meaning Obama being directly involved in this in some capacity, than there ever was for Russia collusion. But the media just wants to move past this. I mean, Brian Stelter, who's a joke and a clown, was saying that the right is obsessed with this story now.
It's so hard to even push back against what they're doing because it's gaslighting. They pretend that it's a conspiracy theory, even though you ask them a slew of questions. There's a ton of evidence, a ton. FISA warrant applications, over 90% of them in this case had fraudulent evidence and were riddled with errors. And you have, tons of stuff that we're learning about Adam Schiff and how he lied about having evidence of collusion and so on. I mean, there's so much. And they never answer any of those specific questions. They just quickly jump to some, over-the-top comment that Trump made or some exaggeration he made, and then sort of revolve their argument around that and ignore the massive evidence we have that something wrong had happened here. So it's difficult to push back against it, but it is not a conspiracy theory. Perhaps it's, perhaps Obama, and I mentioned this in my piece, people jumped all over it. Perhaps there's no specific crime that Obama, engaged in that we're going to prosecute him for. I think you shouldn't think that, people shouldn't think that's going to happen. But clearly he knew what was going on, and clearly there are abuses of power here. And it matters because Joe Biden and a ton of the people involved in that are trying to take power back, right? And they used that investigation to undermine the administration here. It's an abuse of power.
Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.